to appreciate this place I built for you. I can imagine how wonderful it would feel to relive that unforgettable night.
Today we're going to be talking about the music in Dread Templar, something I'm a complete expert in and shouldn't get any fallout from. This is the point where I put up my sarcasm sign. In 1993, one of the world's most iconic soundtracks was published by Bobby Prince, with some bonus content in the form of the game Doom for MS-DOS by id Software as well. Prince mixed and recreated metal and electronic MIDI tracks directly inspired by, and sometimes outright taken from metal bands such as Alice in Chains or Pantera. In collaboration with the legend God himself, John Romero, Prince was able to compose a mixture of metal-like and electronic soundtracks, which Romero decided to use a mixture of in the creation of Doom's ambient and iconic soundtrack, providing a balance between action-soaked gory combat and exploration in the original Doom maps. This made for great atmosphere and created a very specific game pace. In Doom, tracks were placed by Romero and other map makers later in development of the game. The music wasn't made for any specific map in sequence, but rather picked and added to what made sense. I can imagine a level like Phobos Anomaly needing a slower, brooding, crawling pace to represent the final level's weight and gravity. Where E1 and M1's hangar needed something a little bit with a bit of kick. This approach to balanced music with gameplay, both in general for the entirety of the game and when considering individual levels, made for one of the key reasons why Doom was so awesome, and why it impacted gaming in general forever onward. An approach in game development that is still used and considered in the composition of modern gaming today, from indie titles like Dread Templar to commercial games like Call of Duty. Yeah, I mentioned Call of Duty in this video and I'm not ashamed to admit it. The original games were actually pretty good. Music is essential to gaming. It's perfect for setting pace and enhancing gameplay, but also expanding dramatic story beats to create more engaging narratives. Music in games like Dusk, Ion Fury, Duke Nukem, and Dread Templar support this kind of approach. Creating a pace. More specifically, games today, unlike Doom, have the opportunity to consider a more adaptive or dynamic approach to its music use. A really great YouTuber, Noodle, goes into a lot of detail about the history and the use of adaptive music in video games, and I'm going to link his video in the description for you. But essentially, TLDR, for the sake of this point, adaptive music is essentially in-game music whose volume, rhythm, or tones change in response to events in the game. This could be anything from changing levels, to combat, to adventures, to story beats, and so on. A good example in the boomer shooter space is Doom 2016, where the Slayer is pushed to rip and tear based on every action encounter. But slowly the music fades and bleeds away as the action ends and the adventure continues, creating a shooting slaying-driven symphony of carnage throughout the game's experience, but also softer moments, slower moments to let you appreciate the carnage when it comes. This improves the overall pace and flow of the gameplay, either pushing or pulling players into specific emotions or narrative beats in the game, establishing a tone for key moments in a level, or specific in-game events, and so on. Like its contemporaries, Dread Templar focuses heavily on establishing an aggressive yet dark atmosphere, pushing you, the Templar, through complex, hellish, and macabre dark levels, with the goal of slaying and blasting the undead and demonic alike, on a quest for revenge, to slay that demonic thing that killed your grandfather all those years ago. Nice. Dread Templar's composer, John S. Weekly, takes the opportunity of this kind of setting to mix industrial metal, thrash, wailing synths, and orchestral vocals to create a hard, relentless soundtrack. which is perfectly positioned in the pitched battle between the Templar and the multitudes of monsters from across dimensions. The music, along with fluid mobility of combat, establishes a fast-paced, in-battle experience, pushing you to experiment with different gameplay and gun styles, from weapon quick switching, which for me was basically the custom shotgun and the double-barrel shotgun all the time, but also movement and mobility, experimenting across the map with different jumping and sliding, something Dread Templar does exceptionally well. Your ability to engage in very fluid movement and the interesting feature of customizing your guns and power-ups, and thus your playstyle, keeps every map and battle fresh throughout the game. You never feel like you're using one gun the whole game, even in my case, or some tactics over another for every single encounter. Things are fresh, and that's awesome. Add to that the huge bestiary of monsters, everything from that ice tick thing that throws spears across the map, to other monsters that get up a little close and personal. Every battle is intense, fast-paced, and pretty engaging. You can nearly feel the blood in your mouth or your eyes drying up. Put that image in your head. Though, unlike other games, and this is the point I'm trying to make here, Dread Templar doesn't stop. The pace of the battle or the fight is ever present, which for me, like a trip you're not able to come out of, is a big problem. Basically, with all the battles won, the castle towers conquered, the eldritch monsters slayed, after each battle, you're also encouraged to do some secret hunting, exploring each map to discover tokens, to customize your weapons and upgrade your powers. This is pretty cool. And you're gonna need to do these upgrades because bigger nasties later in the game are just relentless. This is an overall fair mechanic, and something that we don't see a lot of in boomer shooters these days. A bit of secret hunting is also a cornerstone of any retro-inspired shooter game these days. However, while exploring, the pace of the battle hasn't slowed, and this is the problem. The beat and the grind hasn't stopped. The music keeps going relentlessly. The relentless pace of the music through each map, from start to finish, at the same volume, constantly. And for some instances, I think the developers reuse tracks in different maps, again, turning one of Dread Templar's core strengths, which is their awesome soundtrack, into an ear-numbing repetitive noise. Without the time to correctly craft a more adaptive approach to the music and the gameplay per level, providing some breathing room between fights and allowing you time to appreciate encounters, map design, and exploring, or just take in the general onslaught of monsters you went through, you're left hearing noise. What amounts to, for me, a red haze of metal that eventually got not only tiresome and repetitive, but frustrating. Though, I did take the time to listen to Weekly's tracks individually over on Bandcamp, and I can confidently say that the lack of balance between music and gameplay here is even more unfortunate. Weekly's work on its own is pretty good. A solid and aggressive, action-focused OST. It's pretty legit. Though, I think in this instance, this amazing work is poorly implemented. The final outcome here, for me at least, is a game that has so much engaging action and interesting gameplay mechanics, but for over the long run, falls short on longevity and consistency, with this noise eventually turning normal exploration for tokens into a frustrating speedrun without breath or air. I honestly shouldn't crave the sense of relief that I get at the end of every map just to have a moment to collect myself in a brief instance as the pace changes. Sure, the tracks change between maps, sometimes I suppose. Eventually they just bleed into each other and I couldn't tell you which is which. And I looked for it, I really did. So, in a nutshell, while Dread Templar is a pretty good retro-inspired boomer shooter, retro boomer shooter, whatever you want to call it, it gets a lot right, from the guns to the story to the action. I love all those things, but I feel the overall experience for me was weakened by the misuse of the power that is Weekly's work. Can it be fixed in future updates? I don't think so. This feels kind of the way it is. Though the developers should seriously consider a more adaptive music approach in the sequel. Please. The game was so good, but not worth the literal headache after 16 hours of gameplay. The game is long. You're going to be sitting listening to this relentless music for a very long time. And it gets rough. So give Dread Templar a try, but take breaks, unless headaches are your thing. But also, if you do miss this one, the only thing you'll regret is that awesome weapon customization mechanic. Thanks for watching, everybody. I have a bunch of other videos on my channel for around retro-inspired shooters right here for you to check out. Shout out to my Patreons, you're the explosive ammo to my short-range shotgun. And hey, if you're still here at the end, let me know in the comments. I think it's pretty cool, you know, like we're at the end of a video and, you know, people are still watching. Like, now I'm just rambling, but if you're still here and you're listening to this rubbish, please comment with the word cheese in the comments. And then we can all laugh about, oh, we were here at the end together. It's a thing. Anyway, please check out the secret link in the description. Until next time, I love you very much. Take care. Rip and tear. Cheers.